Welcome to Council Catch-Up. I'm Derek Westby, and I'm here with Mayor Tim Swadley to go over the council meeting from October 25th. How are you today, Mayor?
I'm doing well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. At the beginning of the agenda, you had all of the normal stuff, the roll call and the minutes and reports. Did anything interesting happen at the beginning of the meeting that you'd like to share with us?
We did have one gentleman that spoke at the public comment period, and that period is always welcome to the public. We just ask to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and make sure it's relevant and not abusive to anybody that might be there.
Okay, and did he have anything particular he wanted to talk about? Or?
He just wanted to discuss where we are on the dam and the water park situation, and kind of let us know that he was representing a group of constituents that were opposed to the project.
All right, well, that's always helpful. And then, were there any communications of note?
A couple communications. One, the city was in a dispute with a landowner regarding a tree that was to be removed as part of a road and sidewalk project. And I announced that we did reach a settlement with that family so we can proceed with the work. And that's on Rose Street. So you can anticipate the pavement will be going in there soon. And the sidewalk may or may not get completed this year. If not, it'll be in the spring. And then we also had our county board representative Engelberger came and gave us an update on where he's at, some of the projects they're working on at the county board, and that he has a newsletter available that you can get online at the county's website.
Well, that's very interesting. You didn't have any old business, so let's get right into new business. You had a first reading of an ordinance to change a general development plan for part of 51 West development. What is that regarding, and how do people understand what that means?
So basically, when we do an ordinance, we do 2 readings. The first reading is to introduce the ordinance, and at the following meeting, we typically take action on the ordinance. And this particular one has to do with some lots that were designated to be fourplex units, and the zoning request was to convert them into fourplexes into duplex units, so they could actually get more units in those lots. So there'll be more homes available for people that want to live out on 51 West on the west side. There's 3 different sections out there, and we certainly welcome having higher density and more opportunities for people to have a place to live.
All right, and for new business item number 7, mobile service support structure ordinance changes. What is that about?
So that's another way of saying cell towers. So there was some changes in the state law that really limited our ability to make decisions regarding whether or not we would support a cell tower to be built within the city of Stoughton. So it's an area where basically took away some of our local control, which is always concerning to me. So what we did is we tried to redo our ordinance so it was consistent with the state law, and then we put in there a setback requirement in any development that is eligible to have a single-family home. We can put in a 200-foot setback from the homes for the installation of the cell towers. So we're hoping that will protect those that live in those types of areas. There may be a few areas that may be affected, but if you have followed anything on the cell towers, they're pretty selective where they can put them so they can get specific type of reception. So we're hoping that with the new ordinance that it'll be clear understanding of where they can be and where they can't be, and that's consistent where really the cell phone companies or the cell tower companies want to install them.
Awesome. And then item number 8, Resolution 202 of 2020, talks about a certified survey map at 1008 Riverview Drive. And that's on the corner of Roby and Riverview Drive. What is that for?
So there's a lot there that is a larger lot. And in the past, it was one lot. And a CSM, which is a certified survey map, what that does, that's a process that allows us to split that one lot into 2 lots so they could build another property there.
Oh, well, it's great to always have some infill. And then after that, there was Resolution 203 of 2022, the acceptance of public improvements for 51 West Development Phase 1. And that's on the east side of 51 north of Taco Bell KFC, correct?
That's correct. It's the area that they've been working on near Eggleston's Woods. And the public improvements usually consist of sewer, water, electrical, and those types of installations, as well as roads and sidewalks. And in our development agreement, we have clear specifications about when we would accept the improvements that were done. There are a couple exceptions in this particular area because there's some stormwater work that has occurred, and we like to see the vegetation grow in and see really the whole thing functional before we take on the responsibility of maintaining it. So what we did last night is we accepted those areas that we feel that we're confident that everything is done according to the engineering and specifications that were required in the developer's agreement.
Okay, that's real good. Again, more development. And then Resolution 204 of 2022, providing Wisconsin Department of Transportation comments on their proposed improvements to US 51 from 5th Street to Roby Road.
So you may be aware of that the Department of Transportation is doing what they call a major project, which is Highway 51 corridor project, basically from the interstate at Coachman's all the way through Stoughton, all the way to McFarland to the Beltline. And as part of that, they're doing it in different segments or phases. And this particular phase will be, one of the first areas will be from Spring Road to 5th Street. And then this section here from 5th Street all the way up to Roby Road. They're looking at doing a couple things a little bit differently, especially as you get toward Page Street, up toward Whole Avenue. Currently, that area is a 4-lane road, 2 going in each direction. And what they've done is they've introduced a concept to us, which they call a twiddle, and it stands for twin lanes, and I don't know what the rest of it means, but it's basically an acronym that they use for these 3 lanes, so 1 in each direction and a middle turn lane. And we looked at some examples. I believe there's one in Oregon and one in Madison on Odana Road. And the idea of it is to allow the traffic to move more slowly, more orderly, hopefully slower, and then leave that middle lane open for people that are turning left or emergency management vehicles that may be looking to get through traffic more efficiently. There was a public information meeting that the Department of Transportation had. Unfortunately, it wasn't really well attended. We did put a link on our social media account to encourage people to reach out to the DOT with any questions or comments that they may have. And this resolution here was really in support of designing that. They're a few years away from doing the actual project. And what the DOT likes to do is they like to get like at a 30% design. They have an information session, they get to a 60%, and then ultimately to a 90%. And at that point, they're ready to build. They have all the resources, the money available to do the project. What they're trying to do is get the engineering done a year or 2 ahead of time. In case there was some money that might free up, they might be able to advance these projects forward a year. So we work with them and try to gather as much information we can to help them in their decision-making process.
And since that's a state project, will that cost the city any money, or is that all on them?
The majority of the cost is done by the Department of Transportation. The city does pay for some engineering costs. There will be some costs to Stoughton Utilities for some of the work that they need to do, and as well as some of the upgrades. So, for example, one of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a 10-foot sidewalk on both sides of Main Street all the way up to Highway B. The standard is 5 feet. We offered to pay the difference on a 10-foot to make it wider for pedestrian and bicycle safety. We cannot acquire land through eminent domain to do a trail system, but we can acquire land for sidewalks. So in this particular project, we proposed that we do a 10-foot wide sidewalk, and the DOT concurred. There also would be additional costs for little things such as upgrading lighting if we choose to do that, as well as colored cement. They pay for the standard color. If they put a mix in to turn it the reddish orange that you usually see, there is an upcharge for that we pay for, but the majority of the cost is paid for by the DOT.
All right, sounds good. And then agenda item 11 is the approval of a contract for the shared ride taxi service. And anything on that, or?
So this one here is, I believe it's every 5 or 6 years we have to send our shared ride taxi out to bid. And basically what we were doing is giving the city council a heads up that this would be occurring here in the next couple months. And there's a couple members of the finance committee, Lisa Reeves and then Ozzie Doom, that are going to work with Finance Director Alinger to go through the proposals for the bids. And what they do is they go through, and there's criteria in there that they evaluate. They'll make a recommendation, and then ultimately the state of Wisconsin has their own criteria as far as the funding of that. They put that all in a formula, and then ultimately they select who the vendor will be. And the shared ride taxi, as you know, is available, basically Monday through Sunday until 6 o'clock at night. Many people use it. We have multiple vans with lift gates that we've upgraded to over the years, and they've been able to provide quite a bit of services here in the city of Stoughton. And it's actually administered through Madison Metro, which is kind of interesting. So we have a partnership between the city, Madison Metro, and the state of Wisconsin. Basically, the state of Wisconsin pays, usually it's about 55 to 57% of the cost of the program. And then the city of Stoughton pays for the balance. And typically our balance is returned to us through the fares that are collected by those that utilize the service.
And who maintains those vehicles?
So the shared ride taxi service is Running Incorporated is the company that manages them. So they do the dispatch, they hire the drivers, and then they work with a local shop to do the maintenance on the vehicles. And then every year our public works guys inspect the vehicles, because ultimately somehow we have an ownership in the vehicles. We purchase the vehicles through a grant program. So it's like a split where the city pays a small portion, and then the state or Madison Metro, they facilitate the rest of the cost for the van. So it's a good deal for us to upgrade the vans when it makes sense. But they do maintain them, but we do an annual inspection because ultimately we're responsible for the vehicles.
Awesome. And then you had on here Resolution 205 from 2022, talking about the utilities budgets for 2023 and their capital budget through 2027. I mean, that was for presentation only, but is there anything you want to share about the utilities department budget?
So the utilities budget, what they do is they go through all their expenses for all their employees, for their building, for all the infrastructure projects and equipment they need to maintain the wastewater, sewer, water, and electrical. So Shannon Statz and Director Weiss were there to do a presentation to give the council an update on their budget. And they did a terrific job. This would be the first full year that Shannon's been there as the finance manager. So they just kind of go through the slides, let us know where they're at. That way, if their council has any questions, they can get them answered. The plan is to take all the budgets. So we have the utilities budget, we have the city capital improvement project budget, as well as our operating budget, to the city council meeting that was rescheduled to November 15th. Normally, we would meet the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, but with the election being on the second Tuesday, we've opted to move the budget meeting until November 15th, and it's noticed in the paper that way as well. So if anybody wants to look at the budget, it's available in the paper. You can certainly go on our website and look at it as well. But really what we were doing is we were introducing the city council to the utilities budget, which was already approved by the utilities committee.
Okay. And with that meeting on November 15th, that'll be on WSTO, so people can watch that on Spectrum Channel 981, TDS Channel 12, and on our new Roku and Apple TV apps. So people can always catch the meetings, and they'll be replayed and on demand. So that's always good for people to be able to watch those meetings. And the last item you had on your agenda for council was a true hotel property valuation litigation. Do you want to tell us a little bit of background on that?
Sure. So the True Hotel opened up right at the beginning of COVID, and every January the city assessor goes out and they evaluate the value of the properties. And typically on commercial properties, they value it by other properties that are similar that have sold, or the cost of building a structure, or it could be revenue based on how much business they have and how many rooms that they had filled during the course of the year, basically. And we had a challenge to the property assessment because it was assessed at basically the cost of building it. Well, obviously, when they opened up during COVID, their revenue didn't meet their projections. So they challenged the assessment. And whenever a business owner or even a property owner wants to challenge their assessment, there's a period, usually around May, where they can contact the assessor and see if they can, understand why their property was assessed at the rate they were. If they're not satisfied with that answer, there is a board of review meeting that is made up mostly of council members. They have to go through a training in order to participate on that committee. And then they can make a determination based on testimony from the resident or business owner and the assessor and try to come to a conclusion. On this particular property, the assessed value was well over $8 million. And, they challenged it and said they only thought they should have to pay their property taxes based on $3.5 million. So when it came to the board of review, we waived the hearing, which meant it really went right to circuit court. So while we've been waiting for the circuit court process to go through, we've been going back and forth and trying to negotiate a settlement that's fair to both parties, so we could just both kind of move on and not incur additional court costs and attorney fees along the way. So I'm happy to say that we did reach an agreement, both parties did, for 2021 and 2022. And I believe the value in 2021 was at $5.5 million, and in 2022 it was $7 million, which we feel, based on what's going on and comparing it to another True Hotel in Madison and some other hotels around Dane County, that's a fair compromise, and it allows both parties to move on without incurring any additional costs.
Well, that sounds great. And that was all that we had on that meeting. But you do have Coffee with the Mayor coming up on November 11th, 2022. And who's your guest for that one?
My guest is scheduled to be Police Chief Jenks.
Oh, awesome. Introduce him to the community and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. All right, sounds good. That's all we had for today. So thanks for watching Council Catch Up, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.